Hello and welcome. This is View from the Top. I'm Modele Sharafa Issouf. A 1997 World Bank report groups corruption into 5 broad categories: bribery, theft, political and bureaucratic corruption, isolated and systematic corruption, and private sector corruption. Corruption in Nigeria appears to be ubiquitous and takes many forms, from massive contract fraud to petty bribery, from embezzlement to money laundering, from pocketing the salaries of ghost workers to awarding contracts to relatives and friends. Corruption is rife across the country's economic sectors: petroleum, trade, industrial, agriculture, infrastructure, banking, even environmental. It is generally agreed that these acts of corruption erase billions of dollars from Nigeria's bottom line and prevent it from realizing its great human and economic potential. Corruption is said to stymie development and weaken the social contract between the government and its people. An example, the Niger Delta Development Commission, which has been in the news lately, is said to have received approximately 4 trillion naira in the past 20 years. But despite these enormous resources, the consensus among stakeholders is that there is little to show for it in the Niger Delta. Nigerians view the country as one of the most corrupt and struggle daily to cope with the effects. Reports and commentary about corruption are a staple of the country's vibrant media and among its writers and filmmakers. Check out, for example, a few newspaper headlines in this last week alone. Talking about headlines, perhaps the most alarming in recent weeks is that which hit us in the face on July 6. DSS arrests EFCC acting chairman Ibrahim Magu. As part of government's anti-corruption fight, President Buhari constituted the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption in August 2015. It was the very first committee he set up after he was sworn into office. PACA commenced work immediately with the mandate to promote the reform agenda of the government on the anti-corruption effort, to advise the administration in the prosecution of this war, and implement required reforms in the country's criminal justice system. I'm being joined today by Professor Itse Sagay, PACA chairman. Thank you for joining us, Prof.
You're welcome.
Before we start our conversation, here's a brief biography. Professor Itse Sagay, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Of all the incidents I've mentioned a little earlier, perhaps the most surreal has been the arrest of the EFCC chairman. He's the one who's supposed to be making the arrests, isn't he? And the irony is not lost on us. And it's almost deja vu because, you know, I remember between 2007 and 2011, the then Attorney General, Michael Aundwaka, and then EFCC chairperson Farida Waziri were accused of actively working to undermine their own work. The former chairman, Ibrahim Lamorde, was kicked out by President Buhari on the allegations of corruption. And now Magu is in the hot seat. Even though he's presumed innocent until proven guilty, it is still very bad optic. I'm sure you'd agree. But really, corruption within anti-corruption agencies undermine the country's already anemic accountability mechanism, does it not?
Yes, as a matter of principle, it does. But I don't want it to be implied that Magu is guilty of corruption. We have to be very careful about that. But yes, as a general principle, yes, corruption within anti-corruption agencies undermines the struggle. But that has nothing to do with Magu as far as I'm concerned, because he's being investigated, so there's no evidence yet of that.
Your agency did put out a statement when he was, someone put out a statement on behalf of your commission when he was first indicted. So your stand is that he's innocent until proven guilty.
Obviously.
Nothing has been proven against him. You don't have any concerns about how he's been carrying on his work?
No, I mean, up till this incident occurred, we were very happy with his work, with the quality of his work, with his achievements, which I regarded as phenomenal, and had put Nigeria on a very bright and admirable path in the war against corruption, and which was majorly responsible for the president being declared champion against corruption of Africa. So I had nothing, we had nothing negative about it. And well, since these recent events, we are just waiting to hear what the panel is going to report. And it's based on that we are going to take our next steps or make any statement on the issue.
Do you agree, or you still suspect that this is power play on the corridors of power?
No, our colleague said that, but he said it on the
commission stepped back from that stage.
Yes, personal basis, and we said, no, that's your opinion. We are not yet ready as a commission, as a committee, to express an opinion on this matter yet, until the Salami report is out.
The Attorney General accused the EFCC chairman of corruption. Upon his release, the EFCC chairman accused the Attorney General of corruption. The House of Representatives is investigating the sleaze at the NDDC. The NDDC management staged a walkout because they accused the chairman of the committee of corruption. Recovered loot is said to be re-looted. It does appear that everyone is in on it, doesn't it? How do these things continue to happen?
Well, I think to start with, Nigeria has been suffering from endemic corruption for decades. And so we must put everything in context. That corruption has continued, and what this government has done is to express a willpower to fight it. And the result of that has been 5 years of very, very admirable achievements in that area. What we are seeing now is that, yes, corruption is still going on, but the question is it at the same level as it used to be? Is there the impunity we used to see in government and at official levels? All that has gone down considerably. A lot has been recovered. I have no evidence of relooting under this government, because you just said that. I have no such evidence. Convictions have been achieved, even with high-profile persons, as we have seen. So a lot has been achieved. And the context is that we have a country that has corruption as a DNA, virtually. So really, it's an uphill struggle to try and conquer corruption. And so far, the best has been achieved, but we have a long way to go.
I mentioned the House of Representatives a little earlier, the face-off between the NDDC management and the House reminds me of the Aroma Ote and Representative Hembe saga in 2012, and is symptomatic of the symbiotic relationship between legislative and bureaucratic corruption, where oversight is often a euphemism for shakedown or extortion. It's this mind-boggling because it leaves the legislature, makes them a toothless bulldog, does it not? Because every time you are second guessing their
motive.
Their motive.
Yes, it's true. It's a very big problem. What I've found is that legislators are really not satisfied with their role as legislators. The job is a very, very demanding one. You know, making laws for the country, debating current issues, doing oversight virtually for every aspect of activity in the country. It's a very demanding job, and they are, of course, very well paid. We all know that averagely they earn 15 million a month. That's a lot, 15 million a month. I mean, compared to 30,000 a month as the official low minimum wage. So my problem with our legislators is this. They deliberately choose to be legislators. They know the responsibilities of legislators, both the limits and everything. They know what they are supposed to do under the Constitution, which is in Section 4, I believe. From time to time, in fact, almost from the very beginning, particularly under this last 20 years, when we had a return to civilian rule, they've never been satisfied. They want to, they seem to envy the executive. They want to do executive work. That's why we had this problem with Keyamo, because they just wanted to take over the execution of this 774,000 job program. That's there. They want to be executive. They want to be parliamentarians. Then the other thing is that they are doing business all over the place. They go to the NDDC. They go there to look for contracts. In fact, from what I gather, unofficially, a lot of the contracts there are being executed by our parliamentarians. So it is this, I don't know what to call it, whether it's greed, it's a major problem. And I think we need to not just inform them, but to make them realize that the Constitution has carved out their role. They should keep to that role. And as public officers, they should avoid seeking contracts and money from other sources other than what they are getting.
You have suggested to the president to sack the interim management committee of the NDDC.
Yes.
But is management change the solution to that problem? I ask because I know that many people in the Niger Delta have even called for the scrapping of the NDDC. They say, like Umpadek, this commission is not impacting their lives.
Yes, because of the way it's being managed. Because as you said in the introduction, about 4 trillion has been received. There's no evidence of 4 trillion being invested in Niger Delta. So obviously it's been filtering into private pockets. I think what we need to do is to appoint a set of people in whom we have confidence in terms of integrity and commitment to serve, and then monitor them very, very closely.
Monitoring that, haven't we been able to, and why haven't we been able to put this in place in the last 20 years?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We should do more than what we've been doing the last 20 years. There should be some other committee or agency that will monitor them. Every award of contract should be announced, the amount should be known, the execution should be followed to the end. So these are people, I mean, the Niger Deltans, of which I'm one, have shown that they are not sufficiently developed or mature to be left alone to carry out a program that has been created by this country for their benefit. So we need to be monitored very closely and treated like children going to school. That's what needs to be done. So every contract that is awarded must be published, we must know the amount, we must know the beneficiary, we must watch the implementation to the end. That's the only way it can be done.
The anti-corruption agencies, EFCC, ICPC, are organs set up by government, and the government, personified by its officials, is regarded as the most corrupt institution in Nigeria. Can the EFCC or the ICPC, can they do an impartial job of probing their own benefactor? I remember once speaking with Bishop David Oyedepo, and he wondered out loud how government-funded agencies like this can effectively prosecute the anti-corruption war. Isn't it important for anti-corruption agencies to remain truly independent of politicians whom they often investigate?
No, they cannot remain independent of either the president, in the case at the federal level, or the governor at the state level. There must be an authority from which they derive their power that will protect them, that will shield them against attacks and challenges that they feel, that will give them authority to go to any level of investigation that they want. It's not practicable to say EFCC should start investigating the president because something like that happens in Israel. That's ridiculous. I mean, we're just, aspiring to something that is so far away when we have not dealt with the immediate problem. So all we need is a president who is himself a person of integrity, who is above board, and he'll be the person before whom the buck stops. And then the authority that will empower these agencies to do everything that they need to do to cleanse the society.
What if we mistakenly elect a president that does not have integrity?
Yes.
And the anti-corruption agencies still have to report to him? How do you see that scenario?
Well, I mean, the anti-corruption war will just deteriorate. That's what we saw it happen before. We saw it under the last government. If the government is not committed, it will deteriorate. What
do you say to people who say even this government is paying lip service to the anti-corruption drive?
Well, I would tell them, go and ask the governors who are in prison whether that is lip service. They should go and ask the owners of the 1 trillion amount naira worth of assets that have been recovered whether that is lip service. Let them go and ask Diziani whether there is lip service in this. So I think that's a joke. Only people speaking in bad faith who are closing their eyes to what is happening because they are not happy, because they themselves are fighting back. They constitute corruption themselves, fighting back. Only people like that will say that sort of thing.
Our institutions, the way that our politicians capture power, ab initio, does it not fuel all of these things that is happening?
You're right, absolutely right. Our whole electoral system has improved. Been some improvement since 2015. It has improved, but we still have a very long way to go because our politicians are so desperate that they do not feel that there's a limit to which they can go. It's more than do or die. There's nothing they cannot sacrifice, even human beings, for them to get a political appointment. Yes, we have a major problem there. And I think it's going to be a matter of time. Usually the head of INEC, the character and stature of the head of INEC matters. We saw what Jega achieved. And the present man, I think he means well. He may not have the strength of Jega, but he means well. But we are going to continue to have problems until the whole elections are made electronic. Unless we have 100% electronic elections.
The epicenter of corruption used to be the NNPC, which shapes petroleum industry policy and regulations and spends lavishly on itself with minimal oversight. Are the reforms carried out so far within the NNPC far-reaching enough?
The NNPC, I am not aware of the reforms that have been carried out in the NNPC. And I am not impressed by the level of integrity and honesty with which the NNPC is operating. I'm not. I think they still need a lot of supervision. They have too much powers, they handle too much money, and they are too free in the way they are spending it without authority and without having to explain. So, I mean, I'm not sure much has been done since Desiani left the place, and you see the way money was spent when she was there. We're talking of billions of dollars. I'm not sure anything has been put in place to stop that, rather than simply relying on the integrity of those who are handling the institution right now. So I am still not satisfied. There's too much freedom in the NNPC with regard to expenditure.
What part has the judiciary played in all of this mess?
Yeah, well, I have a grouse with the judiciary in the sense that the judiciary has not shown commitment to the anti-corruption struggle. Now, I have to be very careful about this. I'm not saying all the judiciary. In fact, I'm not even saying the majority. I believe the vast majority of judges are upright, they have integrity. They too are victims of corruption, because if the whole country is being undermined, our development is being undermined, it will affect them and their own families. So, by and large, the vast majority of judges are upright. But there are quite a number who are corrupt, who are unprincipled, who lack integrity. Those few have destroyed, or let me say, are poisoning what I would call the pure stream of justice in the country. They are poisoning it. It's leading to a situation in which they are creating lack of confidence in the judicial institution.
Should there be a special anti-corruption court, as has been advocated by some?
Yes. In fact, we are not only working for it, we have a bill in the National Assembly towards that end. And if I may say so, even the EFCC Act empowers the chief judges of states, the Federal High Court, to assign special courts within their jurisdictions as anti-corruption courts. The authority is already there in terms of legislation, but no special anti-corruption courts have been created.
There have been lots of things happening lately in the fight against corruption. All of these hearings at the House, all of these forensic audits, the arrest of the EFCC chairman, all the investigations. Government spokespersons say all of these point to the fact that the anti-corruption war is being waged. But the fact is not lost on the rest of us that this government seems a little helpless in the face of egregious pillaging of the common till. This is a government that vowed to kill corruption before it kills all of us. What needs to happen for us to perceive this fight as a honest fight against corruption?
Well, you really have to distinguish between two things. Whether the government is fighting corruption honestly, or whether it's fighting it with sufficient energy. There are two different things. As for the honesty of the fight, there can be no question about that. I mean, not everybody in government is honest, of course, but the two most important members of our government, heads of our government in this country, I can guarantee and swear that they're absolutely men of absolute integrity. I'm talking of the president and the vice president. So that's a good way to start. If the two highest functionaries of government in this country are above board, then there's hope that the lower level can be coerced, can be compelled to try and live up to a certain standard. So, yes, at the lower levels, there are quite a number of officers, officials, both in the public and private sector, who are being dragged kicking and screaming into the whole anti-corruption dispensation, who are not used to it. And it's impossible to change human nature overnight. If you take the Niger Delta, they've been stealing and abusing their powers almost from the beginning of the establishment of the commission. The government ministries is the same thing. In fact, I always say this, that when you have 2 or 3 Nigerians, when you give them a project to execute, the first thing they talk about is how do we share the money? And after sharing the money, then they look at the project, which tends to be unexecuted. So when a government is in this type of situation, in this type of atmosphere, in which corruption is so rife, which is a second nature virtually to the vast majority of people, it's a big battle. It's a big battle. People are still going to try and find a way to circumvent what is going on and pocket something or the other along the way. That is what we are seeing now. The one in the NDDC has been going on, as I said, for a long time, but it has all come out in a very explosive manner now, and I thank God for that, because that gives us a reason to clamp down very heavily. So I think government could be firmer in dealing with these situations. There are so many reports of various people in various offices doing things, and there has been too much delay in tackling those situations. They are allowed to fester for too long. So we could be firmer, we could be faster, and that's what I would advocate. But in terms of the principle, the intention, the will is all there to fight corruption at the very highest level of government. We are lucky about that because we are never sure. Because once the head is rotten, the whole fish is rotten. So that's what is saving us now, that we have 2 people who are examples of integrity and honor at the head of the government.
Professor Sagay, we thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And we thank you for watching. Please join us next time when the program comes around. But between now and then, let's continue this conversation online. Do tweet me your thoughts, please, on Nigeria's anti-corruption war. Thanks again for watching, and bye-bye for now.